Hey, listeners, before we dive into today's episode, we want to hear from you.
We are doing a special Bible Answers episode in December, and we want to tackle the questions you've been wondering about from the last 16 seasons, whether it's something you've been curious about for years or something that just came in your own reading. Nothing is off limits.
Head over to BibleBookClubPodcast.com/contact. Fill out the contact form and send us your question. And here's the fun part. If we choose your question for the episode, our producer, Haley, will reach out to get your sweatshirt size because we're sending you a BBC sweatshirt as a thank you.
So this is your chance, and have fun with this one. We can't wait to hear what's on your mind.
And hopefully we can answer it.
We will be able to answer it. And now, today's episode. This is the Bible Book Club.
The Book of Nehemiah.
Welcome to the club. Last episode, chapter 3, Nehemiah went to assigning the work to build the wall that surrounded the city of Jerusalem. His assignments included who was to work on each section. He started and ended with the sheep gate. This gate was perhaps the most important. This was the gate that all the lambs sacrificed for their atonement came through. For that reason, the priest restored this part of the wall. Other gates and other sections included the fish, Jeshanah, valley, dung, fountain, water, horse, east, and the inspection gates. Lots of gates.
Lots of gates. We also focused on something really important, that dual purpose of the wall. The wall protected the Israelites both physically and spiritually. It kept them safe from enemy attack, but more than that, it protected the temple where God's presence dwelled. It protected their relationship with the Lord, which was dependent on the temple. Their eternal future hinged on that wall's protection. And here's what we need to understand about the concept of a wall. We still need a wall today. God doesn't dwell in a temple made of stone anymore. He dwells in you and he dwells in me, which means the wall we need to build today isn't made of bricks. It's made of faith. Every heart needs a wall of protection. We build that wall by building our faith. And if faith is the bricks in the wall, I would say the word of God is what holds the bricks together.
Oh, good
it's
analogy.
The mortar. Okay, good. I'm glad maybe I'll remember it. Everyone will remember it. Now, in this episode, Nehemiah is going to impart invaluable lessons about what our hearts need protection from: the opposition. We must understand something fundamental. There was opposition in Nehemiah's day. There is opposition today, and there will always be opposition, because when God moves, the opposition moves too. Whenever someone does something for God's kingdom, there is someone out there who doesn't like it. The enemy does not sit idle when you're building something for God. The Apostle Paul knew this principle. In Hebrews, he gave his prescription for how to overcome opposition.
Hebrews chapter 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart.
Everything Paul recommends, Nehemiah is going to demonstrate for us. He is going to throw off the sin that so easily entangles. He is going to run that race of perseverance. He's going to endure opposition from sinners without growing weary and losing heart. He's going to show us how to build our wall of faith amidst adversity. Scene 1. The opposition attacks with ridicule. Ridicule is a form of opposition that can lead to losing heart, and it's the first of 6 forms of opposition that we're going to talk about.
Nehemiah chapter 4. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews, and in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria, he said, What are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, burned as they are? Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, "What are they building? Even a fox climbing up on it would break down their wall of stones."
Now, this is not the first time Sanballat and Tobiah have ridiculed the Israelites. They began in chapter 2.
Back in Nehemiah 2:19. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us.
On the surface, ridiculing the Israelites seems ridiculous. What could name-calling possibly do? Well, a lot, actually. Because of their situation, they were vulnerable to discouragement. They were a generation of people raised in captivity, a weak community of freed slaves, surrounded by enemies, without much to defend themselves, except a God whose presence never filled the temple when it was rebuilt. So is God really for them? In their minds, they probably don't know. The opposition had a plan, and it was strategic. Their goal was to mock them, to mock the Israelites in hopes that ridicule would discourage them. And in their discouraged state, their productivity would diminish or even cease. If the enemy could wound the people's confidence, they could stop the work on the wall without even lifting a finger. But here's what's even more important to understand. The enemy driving Sanballat and Tobiah had a much deeper purpose. This was spiritual warfare. This wasn't just about a wall made of stones. If Jerusalem rose again, the credit would go to God, and the enemy never wants God glorified. The enemy does not want them to do what verse 2 mentioned, offer sacrifices, because sacrifices led to a relationship with God. Sacrifices lead to atonement. Sacrifices lead to a covenant and promises, and God promised them land. That is the last thing Sanballat and Tobiah want, for the Israelites to have more land. And God promised they would be a great nation. And with that, God would be glorified. And that's the last thing Satan wanted. So the enemy sent opposition in the form of men. He sent them to ridicule. He used mockery as a weapon, because sometimes the most effective attacks aren't physical. They're emotional and spiritual. Here is the principle we need to understand. People ridicule to reduce someone in the eyes of others and themselves. Ridicule is a power move. It attempts to draw attention to someone's flaws, thereby elevating themselves in comparison. The motive is to put someone down to project themselves up. In this case, either Sanballat and Tobiah were so arrogant that they wanted to point out how inferior the Israelites were, proving their own superiority, or they were so insecure about the wall, so jealous of the revival of Jerusalem, that they wanted to curtail it before it became a threat. Either way, the desired outcome was the same. The purpose of ridicule is to make the victim feel small, discouraged, and defeated. And Nehemiah was not having it. Nehemiah's response to ridicule was to pray.
I just want to say that I feel like what you're describing here is one of the negative byproducts of social media today.
Oh, yes.
I think there are some good things that social media has brought to us as a community, but this is one thing that people feel the need to tear other people down. And then that really can affect your own mental health. And so that's one way that you can apply that as you're listening to this story of Nehemiah and the strength that he had against that.
Exactly. And watch how Nehemiah deals with it. That's what I love.
Yes. So Nehemiah's response to ridicule is to pray. Continuing in verse 4, "Hear us, our God, for we are despised. Turn their insults back on their own heads. Give them over as plunder in a land of captivity. Do not cover up their guilt or blot out their sins from your sight, for they have thrown insults in the face of the builders."
So first, notice what Nehemiah didn't do. He didn't get defensive, fire back with insult, call a town meeting to explain why the ridicule wasn't true, spend hours on social media inciting others over the issue, spiral into doubt about whether the project was worth doing. let the mockery distract and derail him. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He prayed, he gave the issue to God, and he got back to work. Sometimes prayer is the only response needed. It is not always the easiest.
No.
Here's the reality. Our flesh reacts, our faith redirects. When we are ridiculed, our flesh has an immediate response. It wants to fight. It wants to defend itself. It wants to be vindicated. It's a survival instinct. Your adrenaline rises. Your mind starts crafting the perfect comeback. But faith demands something different. Faith says, I don't need to defend myself. God knows the truth. God sees what I'm building. God is with me. So instead of fighting, I'm going to let God do the fighting, and I'm going to give the battle to him in prayer. The act of faith over flesh requires a lot of self-control. A note for us to remember is that faith is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, the easier this faith redirection will be. A couple of other lessons from Nehemiah's example stand out to me. First, if the enemy is attacking you with ridicule, it means you're doing something right. You're building something that matters spiritually. If your faith didn't threaten the enemy's kingdom, he wouldn't bother. If your choices weren't leading you closer to God, he wouldn't even notice you. If your walls of protection weren't effective, the enemy wouldn't mock them. The fact that you're being ridiculed is actually evidence that what you're doing is significant. Second, ridicule is still a weapon today. Have you experienced ridicule for your faith? People dismissing it as not intellectual or outdated. Your choices, people mocking you for living differently than the culture around you. Your dreams, people suggesting you're not capable, not strong enough, not smart enough. The enemy uses ridicule today just like he used it with Sanballat and Tobiah. He knows that if you get discouraged enough, if you feel small enough, if you doubt yourself enough, you might stop building the wall of faith that protects your heart for the Lord from opposition. Back to our story, where the opposition's attempt to discourage the building with ridicule backfires. Scene 2. Prayer frees the heart.
Verse 6. So we rebuilt the wall until all of it reached half its height, for the people worked with all their heart.
Nehemiah prayed, and there was a victory. And though the people worked with all their heart because they were focused. They weren't discouraged because they didn't hold on to the words of ridicule. They weren't distracted by the need to defend themselves. They gave this situation to God. And because of that, their hearts and minds were free to do his work. Nehemiah's example of placing his faith in God through prayer became contagious and inspired the people to press on. God moved and the people built the wall all the way around to the halfway height. This was a big deal and a lot of work in record time. Archaeologists have uncovered parts of this very wall. The most recent discovery was in 2007 by Eliot Mazar. He uncovered a 98-foot section of the wall that is connected to the City of David Northern Tower. The wall was 8 to 16 feet thick, wide enough for people to march on top of as they worked, and it was 23 to 26 feet high. At this point in our story, the people had built the wall to about 12 feet high all the way around the city. The people built the wall in haste, and actually the archaeological remains confirm this fact because the wall was not well constructed. The stones in it are unfinished and roughly pieced together. But the point is they did it despite the ridicule. To summarize, Nehemiah's first lesson for us on how to overcome opposition would be this. First, be aware of what ridicule does to you. When we are aware, we can fight the urge to react. Then give ridicule to God in prayer and return your focus to God's plan. Now, sometimes God needs us to do more to overcome opposition. Sometimes he wants us to pray and prepare because opposition often intensifies. Scene 3, the opposition attacks with threats. Threats are a form of opposition that can lead to fear.
Verse 7. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs, and the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it.
As the wall grew, so did the number of nations opposing it. Sanballat's Samaritans from the north were joined by the Arabs from the south, the Ammonites from the east, and the Ashdodites from the west. Jerusalem is surrounded by enemies on all sides. And with the opposition's increased numbers came a sense of united power. They weren't just bad-mouthing the project anymore. They were plotting to attack it. They were preparing to put an end to this wall and possibly to the people building it.
Verse 9, but we prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat. Meanwhile, the people in Judah said, the strength of the laborers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot build the wall. Also, our enemies said, before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them and will kill them and put an end to the work. Then the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times over, wherever you turn, they will attack us.
Notice what's happening here. The threat from without created a threat from within. The people's faith in the invisible God was being suffocated by the very visible threat of enemy attack. The strength of the laborers was failing. Fatigue set in, fear set in, and worst of all, hopelessness set in. But Nehemiah had learned something crucial in his journey with God. When threats come, you must pray as if your safety depends on God and prepare as if your safety depends on you. So first, Nehemiah prayed. It is always his first line of defense. In fact, Nehemiah prayed 6 different times in this one short book. Then Nehemiah prepared.
Verse 13, therefore I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters and your wives and your homes.
Nehemiah organized a defense. He stationed people strategically. He gave them weapons. He positioned families at the places they lived, defending the walls where their homes were located to make sure they would be invested. He made this fight intensely personal. Fight for your families, fight for your sons and daughters, fight for your wives and your homes. In other words, Nehemiah gave them something worth fighting for. The threat of the battle was pressing in on them, but Nehemiah was not having it. He was not going to let threats slow down the building of this wall. If anything, this threat was proof that they really did need this wall of protection.
Verse 15, when our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to our own work. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, and bows and armor. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judah who were building the wall. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. And each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. Then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is extensive and spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us. So we continued the work with half the men holding spears from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. At that time, I also said to the people, have every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night, so they can serve as guards by night and as workers workers by day. Neither I, nor my brothers, nor my men, nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water.
Nehemiah was radically agile. He didn't stop the work. He reorganized it. Half the people worked, half stood guard. Everyone was armed. Everyone was alert. And there was a trumpet to sound if danger came. And he put himself forward as the example. He slept in his clothes. He kept his weapon at his side. He would be ready to lead them when and if the time came. They could look to him. When a leader shows up prepared, organized, and confident, when they demonstrate that they've thought through the problem and have a strategy, it shifts the energy from fear to confident hope. Preparation is powerful. It can build confidence. It can give you an advantage. It helps you think through options. Nehemiah had learned throughout his career the value of preparation. He was prepared with a plan for the king back in the capital of Persia, and he is prepared with a plan for the people in the capital of Jerusalem. I think Nehemiah was prepared for God's calling anywhere and at any time, and it made him the confident leader people followed. Because of Nehemiah's prayer and preparation, the opposition heard that Israel was aware of the plot against them, and they didn't attack. Pray and prep is a great recipe for victory. So what is the Nehemiah lesson for us regarding threats? Because at some point, in some way, everyone feels threatened. My sister once felt threatened by a neighbor. I have a friend who felt threatened by a teacher because of her faith. Another friend feels threatened by her husband's addiction. Some people feel threatened by their boss. And every day I read about kids being threatened by bullies. It's my hope that next time you feel threatened, you will channel the example of Nehemiah by praying, preparing, and trusting God. The Apostle John would tell you to start practicing that today, because according to the words of Jesus, there will be trouble coming, and that means opposition.
These are Jesus's words in John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world.
Wouldn't we all feel a little more at peace, a little stronger, if next time trouble started brewing, we could look the opposition in the eye and say, no, sir, not this time. I've had a masterclass in opposition from the book of Nehemiah. I know how the enemy operates, and I am ready. Well, in the next episode, we're going to cover 4 more types of opposition that we all need to get ready for.
We are so grateful you're here. Thanks for reading along, geeking out with us, and being a part of the Bible Book Club. You are the reason we do this. New episodes drop every Monday.